Do you know how terrifying nuclear radiation is? On January 5, 1996, a young man in Jilin, China, picked up a shiny silver chain on his way to work. This simple act led to his legs ulcerating and his fingers becoming necrotic. He ultimately had to undergo 7 amputation surgeries, having both legs removed to survive. This man was Song Juan, China's first victim of a nuclear radiation incident. That chain he picked up was actually iridium-192, a highly dangerous radioactive isotope. The gamma rays it emits can penetrate the skin, enter the human body, and destroy our cells and organs. In severe cases, it can cause death. These objects can look just like ordinary metal, but they contain an extremely lethal danger. However, what's even more dangerous than picking up a radioactive element is entering a nuclear-contaminated area. Due to various incidents, there are many places in the world that have experienced nuclear leaks. Since the half-life of these radioactive materials can last for decades or even centuries, a nuclear leak means the area will be shrouded in radioactivity for a long time. Rashly entering such an area will result in radiation exposure, which can cause genetic mutations or even death. In this video, I, Logan, will take you on a journey to explore the 8 most radioactive places on Earth. Number 8. Bikini Atoll. While you're likely familiar with the Bikini swimsuit, many people haven't heard of Bikini Atoll. This island's scenery is as beautiful as its name suggests, but unfortunately, every inch of its land is highly toxic. Bikini Atoll was one of the United States' largest nuclear weapons testing grounds. From 1946 to 1958, the U.S. detonated 23 nuclear bombs on this small, 6-square-kilometer coral atoll. The total explosive yield was more than 7,000 times that of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The long-term nuclear bombardment saturated the island with a large amount of radioactive material. The ground and surrounding waters are filled with radioactive fallout, or radiation. The primary radioactive element found here is cesium-137, a product of nuclear fission. It releases high-energy gamma rays that, upon exposure, can damage our cells and DNA, leading to genetic mutations or even death. Even more frightening, this radioactive material penetrates the soil and contaminates plants, meaning everything on the island is radioactive. These substances have a very long half-life, making them a long-term danger to the surrounding environment. Number 7. Mayak Production Association. This was one of the former Soviet Union's largest nuclear weapons production facilities, and the site of one of its most severe nuclear leak accidents. The Mayak Production Association was a factory secretly built by the Soviet Union in 1945 for developing nuclear weapons. For a long time, the facility was highly classified, and even the residents living nearby didn't know what was being done there. After the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, the Soviet Union made nuclear weapons development a top priority. To catch up with the US in the nuclear arms race, the Soviets hastily built the Mayak nuclear facility and began developing nuclear weapons. However, because it was built in a rush, safety measures were not fully in place, leading to multiple nuclear leak accidents during its operation. The biggest incident occurred on September 29, 1957. A cooling system failure caused a storage tank containing 70 tons of nuclear waste to explode. The blast released a large amount of radioactive waste into the atmosphere, directly contaminating an area of 2.3 square kilometers. After this accident, to prevent another explosion, the Mayak Production Association decided to discharge the radioactive nuclear waste directly into a nearby freshwater lake called Lake Karachay. But 10 years later, a drought caused Lake Karachay to dry up, exposing the radioactive waste deposited at the bottom of the lake to the air. The wind scattered large amounts of toxic radioactive dust into the surrounding area, causing severe radioactive contamination. To this day, the radiation in this area remains very strong. Number 6. Sellafield Nuclear Power Plant. This is the largest nuclear power plant in all of Europe, located in the northwest of the United Kingdom. Just like the former Soviet Union, after the British first saw the atomic bomb dropped by the Americans on Hiroshima, they also decided to follow the US and create their own nuclear weapons. They then converted the Sellafield Ordnance Factory into a nuclear weapons manufacturing base. Since 1947, this facility has been used to produce the essential elements needed for nuclear weapons. It also receives and processes nuclear waste from other European countries. As for the radiation intensity here, I don't think much explanation is needed because the primary purpose of this place is to collect nuclear waste. Although these materials are strictly sealed, after several decades, equipment inevitably ages, leading to leaks. It is said that most of the buildings at this nuclear power plant have been contaminated, and as early as 2019, media outlets reported that the internal nuclear waste storage facilities had developed cracks and may have been leaking for many years. Number 5. Mailuu-Suu Mining Site. Mailuu-Suu is a small mining town located in Kyrgyzstan. According to the villagers living there, the area is full of sick people. Almost everyone has a family member or friend who has cancer. The root cause of this phenomenon is the residual radioactive uranium ore in the surrounding area. Before 1991, this area belonged to the Soviet Union. During the Soviet era, the Mailuu-Suu mining site was primarily responsible for mining uranium ore used to develop nuclear weapons. As you should know, uranium is a naturally radioactive element. It is both radioactive and chemically toxic, posing a strong threat to the human body. Starting in 1946, the area was used for mining uranium until it ceased in 1968. Over a period of 22 years, nearly 10,000 tons of uranium ore were continuously transported from here to the Soviet Union's nuclear weapons manufacturing bases. After its strategic value was completely exploited, the site was simply abandoned. The radioactive mine pits were left exposed without being sealed. Approximately 2 million cubic meters of radioactive waste produced during the mining process were also not specially treated and were simply buried around residential areas. This region is an earthquake-prone zone. Each time an earthquake occurs, it brings the buried nuclear waste to the surface. The radioactive waste is then washed by rainwater and directly flows into nearby rivers and spreads into the surrounding soil. As a result, the people living here have a much higher chance of getting sick due to long-term exposure to nuclear waste radiation. This place is practically a hell on earth in the real world. Number 4. Semipalatinsk Test Site. Located in Kazakhstan, like the Mailuu-Suu mining site, it was also part of the Soviet Union before its dissolution. During the Soviet era, this area was used as a nuclear weapons test site. For 40 years, the Soviet Union conducted as many as 670 nuclear tests here. However, at the time, more than 700,000 residents lived in the surrounding areas. They were exposed to nuclear radiation for a long time, but were completely unaware of it. This radiation had a devastating impact on their health. Many residents who lived here experienced premature aging, had low immunity, and were prone to various cancers. Even more tragically, due to long-term exposure to radiation, many babies were born without limbs or bones. Initially, people did not know this was caused by nuclear radiation because the base was kept secret before the dissolution of the Soviet Union. It could not be found on any maps. Coupled with the lack of information and limited knowledge at the time, many people did not understand the dangers of nuclear radiation. Some locals even voluntarily went to work at this radiation-filled base. According to incomplete statistics, before the base was closed, as many as 30,000 locals once worked there. However, the number of people who survived was only a few dozen. Even today, the radiation in this area has not completely dissipated and remains very dangerous. Number 3. Hanford Site. The Hanford site is a decommissioned nuclear production complex operated by the United States federal government on the Columbia River in Benton County. This was the world's first base for producing the radioactive element plutonium. The core material for the atomic bomb that the U.S. dropped on Nagasaki, Japan, on August 9, 1945, was produced at the Hanford site. This base, built in 1943, was primarily used to produce the plutonium element required for nuclear weapons. Plutonium is a radioactive element that serves as the fissile material for nuclear weapons. It has a half-life of 24,100 years and is a Category 1 carcinogen. Once it enters the human body, it causes long-term radiation exposure, leading to various ailments and posing a great danger. During the Cold War, The Hanford site produced a large amount of radioactive elements for the United States. After the Cold War, it became a storage site for nuclear waste. Due to the long-term production and storage of large quantities of radioactive waste, this area has become one of the most highly radioactive places in the United States. Both the soil and groundwater are contaminated with nuclear radiation, and the nearby Columbia River has also been polluted. As a result, the Native Americans living downstream have suffered from various complex diseases due to the polluted river water. For a long time, these people have been drinking contaminated water and eating fish contaminated with radiation. Even though they know these things are unclean, they are powerless to change the situation because fish from the Columbia River are the main food source for their tribes. Number 2. Fukushima, Japan. In March 2011, Fukushima, a prefecture in Japan, experienced the most powerful earthquake in the country's history. Known as the Great East Japan Earthquake, this seismic event triggered a tsunami with waves as high as 23 meters. The combined impact of the earthquake and tsunami caused a major explosion at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. This type of power plant contains a large amount of radioactive material. When the plant exploded, it released radiation that affected an area spanning tens and even hundreds of kilometers. This contamination impacted rivers, soil, plants, and houses, basically anything exposed to the open air. Following the explosion, more than 100,000 residents living near the plant were forced to abandon their homes and all contaminated possessions and evacuate. To this day, the radiation has not completely dissipated. Many homes remain as they were 14 years ago, overgrown with weeds and completely deserted. It's estimated that it will take at least 30 to 40 years for the area to return to normal. Number 1. Chernobyl. Chernobyl was a nuclear power plant located in Pripyat, Ukraine. At 1:23 a.m. on April 26, 1986, the number 4 reactor at the plant suddenly exploded. The massive fire caused by the explosion directly scattered a large amount of radioactive material from within the reactor into the atmosphere, severely contaminating a 30-kilometer radius. The radiation dose released by this explosion was equivalent to that of 400 atomic bombs, like the one dropped on Hiroshima. After the explosion, the first group of firefighters quickly arrived to extinguish the blaze. At first, they thought it was just a regular fire, so they rushed into the scene wearing ordinary firefighting gear. The result, as you might expect, was that all of them were exposed to intense radiation. After retreating from the fire, their skin began to fester and their internal organs gradually dissolved. In less than 3 months, these firefighters passed away one after another. To prevent the radioactive material from continuing to leak, local authorities spent over 200 days building a concrete sarcophagus-like structure to seal off the terrifying radioactive materials. To this day, approximately 200 tons of extremely radioactive nuclides remain sealed beneath this sarcophagus. Alright, that's it for this video. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in.